Hey, everyone. This is Mike Dunn.
I'm Matt Downing.
I'm Julie Cook.
And I'm Janine Dunn.
And you're listening to Rethinking EDU. Thanks so much for tuning in to this amazing episode. I'm sure you're going to love it. We are chatting with Sarah Bertucci, and Sarah is the Director of Professional Development at Eagle Rock School and Professional Development Center up here in lovely Estes Park. Sarah and I are actually sitting probably about 50 yards away from one another in different buildings. So Sarah is my colleague, and we're so glad you could join us. Sarah, how are you feeling today?
Great, thank you. I'm really pleased to be here. It's such an honor. I'm doing great. We have sub-zero temperatures and lots of snow, and it's beautiful out.
Yeah, I think it was something like maybe -8 or -10 this morning when I woke up to bring Kelly, our dog, out for a walk. And but the snow is lovely and the sun is out, and hopefully we'll get up to 5 or 10 degrees today. Should be promising, right? Sure, listeners are like, what?
Mike, how's your dog dealing with the change of weather?
She loves the snow, so she's just happy to be outside, but we do have to put a jacket on her just because It's sub-zero and we're not trying to mess around. And her paws get frozen, so she has to wear boots sometimes too. Yeah, super cute. So, Sarah, I'm going to do a little introduction. I'm sure I'll miss something, but the rest will come up in our conversation. You, as I mentioned earlier, the Director of Professional Development at Eagle Rock School and Professional Development Center. You've been working in education since the mid-90s, and you've done a ton of different interesting things. You started as a science teacher, you worked as a program coordinator, a school leader, and a school transformation facilitator, which is super cool. Part of your work at Eagle Rock is your oversight of our teaching fellowship program. In partnership with the National Nonprofit Public Allies, we, Eagle Rock, invite a cohort of fellows to our campus for a year-long immersive teaching and learning experience. And through this process, the fellows can also pursue a Colorado teaching license. And this segment of our podcast, we've been talking specifically about teacher prep programs. And we want to get some insight into what this alternative licensure program, as we call it here at Eagle Rock, and what the state of Colorado, I believe, calls it. We want to get some insight into what that looks like, how it functions, and then where it kind of sits in the broader conversation around teacher preparation. Before we get too much into that, though, Sarah, we want to give you a chance to talk about you a little bit. And you've been at Eagle Rock for a little while now. We were jokingly saying that you've held potentially more roles than any other staff member on campus here, which is amazing. Tell us how you came to Eagle Rock and, give us a brief sketch of what your trajectory has looked like here.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I first came to Eagle Rock in the summer of 1994, which was the very first summer that Eagle Rock was open. I got the position because my university had a summer service program, and you just apply generally to the program and they place you somewhere in the United States. And I just got super fortunate to get placed at Eagle Rock. I didn't think I was going to be a teacher, but by the end of the summer, I was sure I was going to be a teacher. And so I was 18 years old, which in the future, I wouldn't recommend hiring an 18-year-old. But it was a new and pivotal moment in me figuring out who I wanted to be as an adult and what I wanted to do.
And so you were this intern in 1994, and then you left, and then you came back, and then you left again, and then you came back. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that first summer internship made me decide I wanted to be a teacher. And so I went through the teacher prep program at my university, and my first teaching job was in a public school in the Boston public school system. And it was a really hard year. I wasn't really prepared to do a good job teaching. And so one of the things that I decided was I learned so much when I was at Eagle Rock, I wanted to come back to learn some more. And so I did our year-long, what's now called the Public Allies Fellowship Program. At that time, it was just an internship program, but a year-long position as the science intern teaching here. And then I left and worked in a number of different schools around the country, and came back in 2014 as a professional development associate, so working as part of the professional development team. I became the director of curriculum for about a year, and then came into my current role, which is director of professional development here.
That's awesome. And I would say this to be true, and I wonder if you would agree with me, that there's something about Eagle Rock that keeps people coming back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned this a little bit in the like prep show notes, that Eagle Rock in the past has been called a sort of progressive school. It's been a leader of the progressive school movement. And we're sort of at a juncture in our trajectory that I think is important to point out for people who continue to come back to Eagle Rock and why it's such a powerful place. And we're sort of moving toward building ourselves as a liberatory school, a place where students and teachers, school leaders, and even visitors can come and really feel the power of this school experience as a way to sort of catalyze and encourage them to examine whiteness in the world and use a critical lens of power and oppression to examine their teaching practice and the existence of schools in general. Can you just talk a little bit about how that liberatory nature of Eagle Rock has kept you returning and kept you like nourished as an educator?
Yeah, thanks. That's a really good question. One of the things that has been core to Eagle Rock from its founding is an emphasis on not just academic learning, but personal growth. And we are a learning organization. And so I think focusing not just on the mind, but on the body and spirit is something that is contrary to traditional schooling, and which is steeped in white supremacy culture. And I want to be really clear, there are so many people across the country and so many schools, and this has been true historically, that are disrupting that in really powerful ways. So I don't want to paint a broad brush of schools in any way. But one of the things that I really love about Eagle Rock is that we have a commitment to anti-racism and social justice. And that does not mean we have it figured out, but it means that we spend significant time and energy working on that, whether it's personally or in our job roles or as a collective. And that feels important to me because that's like ultimately what it means to build a just society where everyone has belonging, and where we're disrupting historic systems of oppression. And it feels better to be in a community like that. So I just enjoy it more, even though it can be really messy and hard.
Yeah. We interviewed a guest a few episodes back, and she talked about the importance of belonging in schools and how much, in fact, we just had a conversation about this yesterday, right? How much and how important it is for us to spend time to make sure that people feel like they truly belong in their school environment, and how learning really happens only because of that. Once you feel like you belong, then you feel like you can enter into the messy process of learning, which can sometimes, push you out of your comfort zone in really important ways. But if you don't feel like you're supported and belonging there, then that can be really dangerous.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a well-used quote, but I think it's so important that students don't care what you know until they know that you care. If you're going to actually learn something that includes grappling with uncertainty, being vulnerable, questioning some of your deeply held beliefs, and you can't do that if you don't feel safe that people that you're learning with care about you.
Yeah, I love it. So important. I'm going to pass the mic over to Matt, and I want to kind of dive into the structure of Eagle Rock and the Professional Development Center, and a little bit about the school's mission and history to give listeners a sense of what we're trying to do here, in addition to all of what we just talked about. Have at it, Matt.
So Sarah, Eagle Rock is an interesting entity because it's made up of two, right? The school and the Professional Development Center. Can you talk about the relationship between both of them, right? The school and the Professional Development Center, and how you're also trying to create alignment and synergy between those both. So if you can give us a glimpse into that, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I'd say in starting is that we have a mission for students to be engaged in their education. Our mission statement says that we want students to learn to use their minds well and develop their unique potential. And that mission applies to the students that we have here on this campus. Eagle Rock is a tuition-free residential school. And so it's a boarding school, but it's free. And it's for students who weren't being well served in their prior educational environments. And so we have those students here on our campus. And then it's our mission that all schools across the country honor students and care for them and are a liberatory experience for students. So that's the shared mission of the entire organization. And then, like I said, it plays out both here on our campus in the school-centric way, and then through our Professional Development Center, which is more external facing. To give a little historical perspective, the initial conception of Eagle Rock with the PDC was a little bit more of a lab school kind of model, that Eagle Rock would figure some things out and share them with the world. And so we did a lot of hosting visitors and conferences and publications and things like that. We got clear that one, we don't have all the answers, which is a really important thing for all of us to know as educators. And then two, that local context matters a lot. And so it just doesn't make sense to say that practices can be exported from one place to another, though we can learn a lot from other people's experiences. And so what we're really working to do right now with the school and the Professional Development Center is to make sure that everybody in the organization shares the mission here on campus and beyond. And by everyone, I don't mean just staff members, I mean including students. And so one of the things that we're really focusing on right now in the PDC is student partnership. And so we have a student group called the Student Ambassadors, and they are partners with us in the work that we do, facilitating with us. Students do a great job of like assets inventories and asking questions when we observe schools, because they see things that adults don't see. And so that student partnership is really important, and that's obviously a school integration because the students are part of the school. I would also say that one of the things that we're really moving towards is that we want to leverage the expertise and experience of all of our staff, not just those of us that are on the Professional Development Center. And so finding ways that everyone on staff and as many students who are interested get to facilitate professional development, both here on campus and with what we're doing externally.
Yeah, could you share an example? And then I have a follow-up question.
So the new initiative that we're working on that admittedly has gotten interrupted by COVID, but we really want to focus on the power of cohorts where people are learning together. And so we're starting something called the Changemaker Cohort. And it's purposely called Changemaker because we believe, regardless of positional role, anybody can be a changemaker in school. And the way that it's going to work is that youth-adult pairs from across the country will choose a focus area where they want to make change in their school or larger educational environment. And then they'll come to Eagle Rock for some training and learning from each other. And then we'll be supported throughout the year to implement whatever changes they want to make. And Eagle Rock will have a pair in the cohort. So there's going to be a student staff pair from Eagle Rock that's part of the cohort. And that just aligns with the idea that we know that we need to learn as well. And we get better as we talk to outside students and educators from across the country.
That's a really powerful example. Thanks for sharing that and giving a little bit of insight. And I also love that you always include Eagle Rock in that as learners, as coming alongside. It shows a desire to learn more, and also a humility there that you sort of haven't figured it out yet, which you keep reminding us in this conversation. So I can imagine it's hard enough to run a school, and it's hard enough to run a PDC. Why is it so important for Eagle Rock, right, to have a school and a PDC? What about a PDC is so valuable to the learning at the school that you've invested time, resources, energy, year after year after year to sustain it and to make it part of your environment?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a really powerful combination. And I think there's benefits all around. So for us as professional development facilitators, we have some street cred, and we have some connection to reality because we are facilitating things for students here on campus. We are advisors to students here on campus. So we're not getting disconnected from what the daily life of a school or a teacher is. So that's one really important piece. And I'll just say for myself, like, it just makes it more fun. Like, I don't want to do educational work that's disconnected from students. So one, it makes us better as professional development facilitators. Two, it just emphasizes that we're a learning organization. So the PDC is bringing in visitors that can share things with the rest of Eagle Rock. So we get better. So as a school, the professional development center helps us get better. And then both because we learn from the outside, and because we know when we're teaching students that the thing that they learn best is the thing that they teach to other people. And so the presence of visitors who are asking outside questions makes us better, because it forces us to articulate what we do. It forces us to reflect, both as students and staff. And so that's another way that it makes us better. So it's a really powerful synergy between the two parts.
Well, thank you for that description. I love that that idea of a learning lab, the recognizing that, like, we're all students and we're all teachers, basically, and that there's lots to learn from each other, and that really bringing people together to be able to collaborate is really what it's all about. I'm wondering if we can kind of like transition to talking about how the fellowship fits into all of this. This opportunity for teaching fellowships. I know Mike was a part of that at some point, right? But how does the fellowship work? How does it fit into Eagle Rock's mission and its overall relationship with the school?
Yeah. So we have a year-long fellowship position that is through Public Allies, which is an AmeriCorps organization. And so we have young professionals who do a year of service here at Eagle Rock. And they're in various positions. Instructional fellows who can go through the teacher licensure program. And then we also have health and wellness fellows and fellows that work across the organization in various capacities. And so as far as the teaching or the instructional fellows, they have an opportunity to gain their Colorado teaching license through being here at Eagle Rock. And so I would say one of the key ways that fits into our mission is that we're committed to increasing the pipeline of teachers who have an anti-racist social justice commitment, who are committed to centering student voice, and who reflect the diversity of our schools. And so we're particularly interested in having more BIPOC teachers, and we emphasize that in our recruitment for our program. As we all know, most teachers in the United States are white women, and it's important to diversify that. And then the way that the fellowship connects the PDC and the school is that officially all of our fellows are placed at Eagle Rock School. And so that's their, like, if you were to think of a traditional student teaching placement, Eagle Rock is their student teaching placement. They are young professionals who bring in fresh ideas and fresh perspective. They often are closer in age to the students. And so there's some ways that they relate to students in a way that's really helpful. And so, so we're helping them to further their career, and then they better Eagle Rock at the same time.
Yeah, that's awesome to be able to have a full year experience. And when you mentioned that you have kind of a recruitment program built in place to kind of bring people in. Can you tell us a little bit about how you go about recruiting people for the fellowship program?
Yeah, I mean, it's a multifaceted process. So we post in lots of different locations, both for people who are already in the workforce and for people who are recently graduating from college. So that's one piece of it, is the postings. We do a lot of networked recruitment. And so we ask students and staff to reach out to people that they know. We get a lot of applicants through relationships with people at Eagle Rock. And then also, this is one of the ways that the PDC is helpful, in that we have connections with schools and organizations across the country. And so we tap into those networks as well.
Yeah, that's great. I know we've I don't know, in Pennsylvania, we've tried to bring about this year-long internships or fellowships, and I don't know, there seems to be some roadblocks that kind of happen at times. But so I love hearing that is happening out where you're at. Now, I'm wondering, your own experience in a teacher prep program, and kind of how was teacher prep for you? And then did that experience end up translating or impacting your role here at Eagle Rock?
Yeah, great question. I think I had one of the better teacher prep experiences compared to many people that go through teacher prep in the United States. So I went to Princeton University, and the way that it worked there is that you had a major, and then you could also have what we called a certificate. It's kind of like a minor in teacher prep. So it wasn't a major. My major was geosciences, and then I had a teacher prep piece. And it was a really experiential program. And so when we did our student teaching, which was a semester-long placement, we had one seminar at night to reflect on it, and then a lot of embedded observations and feedback. And so I loved it because we were out doing it and then reflecting on it, which is, basically the experiential model. You do the thing and then you reflect and learn from it. So I really loved the program overall. I would say, if I were to look back on it, probably my biggest critique would be that I think that there should have been a bigger emphasis on teacher identity and power and oppression and criticality. Though I will say that the book that I remember most from my teacher prep years was Lisa Delpit's Other People's Children, which really impacted me in terms of a white woman with a progressive education background entering into school.
So thank you for that. I think we all have our stories, and sounds like you had a positive one. I think mine was a mixed bag, but I fought my way through it. And it definitely impacted how I think about teacher preparation programs today when I teach college students. It stays with you. It's a feet to the fire kind of experience for most. And sometimes, as we know, statistically end well within a few years. So in terms of teacher preparation, maybe you can give us a little window into what it's really like at Eagle Rock. What are some of the critical elements? What would a person expect going through that program?
Yeah, thanks. So I'd say some of the real fundamental pieces of our program is that it's an apprenticeship-based model. So it is an experiential program and embedded in an intensive residential community. And so to get a little bit technical, the essential question that we have that overarches our licensure program is, how can I be a phenomenal teacher? And the enduring understanding that we seek to reach is that licensure candidates will understand that anti-racist social justice teaching is a dynamic art and science grounded in self and relationship, requiring continual learning and improvement. And so our seminar throughout the year, in some ways follows that enduring understanding. We start with some stuff about the science of teaching. We do a lot about teacher identity throughout. So the first assignment that the licensure candidates have is to create a how and why I teach document that people do in lots of creative ways. And then at the end of their licensure experience, we reflect back on that to see how that has grown. We start, like I said, with the emphasis of teacher identity, we start with asking people about their experience in schools and how that might be similar, different from what our students are experiencing. And then just basically as an overall flow, so our licensure candidates are paired with an experienced instructional specialist or teacher. And so they co-teach their classes. And there's a trajectory over the course of the year where initially they're in more of a assisting learning role, though that doesn't ever mean that they're just an assistant, like they're always teaching from the beginning, but much more of a learning role, and then more of a co-creating role. And then finally, many of them get to design and teach their own courses in their final trimester here. And then in terms of some of the content, I would say there are two main texts that we draw from. So one is How People Learn by the National Research Council, which says there's 3 key things to know about how people learn. They don't come in as clean slates, and they attach, they learn based on what they've known in the past. And so teachers need to get an understanding that we call accessing prior knowledge. That students learn best when they have a large bank of knowledge that they're connecting information to. So we build background knowledge, and then students learn best when they are in the driver's seat and reflecting on their learning. And so we use metacognition. So that's one text. And then the other one that we draw from throughout the year is Goldie Muhammad's Cultivating Genius. And she sets 4 goals for education for students: identity, skills, intellectualism, and criticality. And so many schools focus just on the skills and intellectualism. And so we try to really bring out the identity development and the criticality, which is an assessment of power and oppression.
Now, I'm fascinated that so you're building a cohort. And what's nice about that idea, first of all, the idea of co-teaching and inviting people into the profession, such a difference than the hierarchy that most of us learn and then have to unlearn because it's never true. Or maybe in some places it is true, unfortunately. I also, how do they interact with each other? So is it a cohort model where they're really learning with and from each other and trying to figure it out as they go?
Absolutely. It is probably the most intensive cohort model of any teacher prep program, because they not only teach together and do seminars together, but they live together on campus.
Oh, wow.
And so they are absolutely learning from each other all the time, both formally and informally.
That's amazing. Okay. So that would change everything if you didn't have to do it alone. There's going to be sleepless nights. It's a high pressure sort of situation, but made better if you can talk it through and be with other people. So you're out in Colorado. I have a question for you. Is Colorado in your way or supportive?
Yeah. Colorado has an awesome system of alternative licensure programs. And so there's, I don't know the number, but there's many across the state, and there's many options for ways for people to access getting their teaching license. So the fact that exists in Colorado is phenomenal. And then we do go through a reauthorization process. We got a original authorization and reauthorization process to make sure that we're adhering to the standards that are required by the Colorado Department of Education. And then specifically, we are charged with organizing our curriculum around teacher quality standards that Colorado has created. And so our licensure candidates' final assessment is a portfolio where they're demonstrating competencies in each of those teacher quality standards.
I'm also interested to know, so you have this mission of outreach, right? The students actually have a mission of outreach, how to do school differently. With this teacher prep program, is there any effort to, do you just stand as the example? Have you reached out to other teacher prep programs? What could other people learn from you if they're in a teacher prep program now, or they're designing a teacher preparation program? What can be learned from Eagle Rock's model?
Mm-hmm. I would say like some of the core things that I would hope other teacher preparation programs could take from us is the emphasis on the teacher identity, that if we don't examine who we are, our biases and perceptions when entering the classroom, then we perpetuate a lot of harm. And for teachers to be clear about who they are and what they stand for is really important. So we have a big emphasis on that. I think the fact that it's experiential is critical. And I do know that student teaching, I mean, it's one of the more experiential aspects of higher ed in general. And I think a lot of teacher prep programs have the student teaching pretty separate from their other coursework. And so having it be a focus for reflection in seminars, I think is really, really important. And we have some of the richest conversations in licensure about all these philosophical and theoretical ideas about education, what it should be and what it shouldn't be. And then I think the other thing that Eagle Rock does in general, and so therefore is in our teacher prep program, is center students. And so we ask the licensure candidates to get feedback from students all the time. And I'd say specifically a couple of weeks ago, they had an assignment to evaluate power and oppression in their classrooms, and they could do it whatever way they wanted. And every single one of them chose to do it in some way that included student input. So some just had a conversation in their class about where power and oppression are showing up in their class. Some did some survey work. They did some observational data as well, but centering student voice and feedback is one of the things that I think is really important.
I would add too, Sarah, that a really important aspect of the fellowship program here is around relationships. The relationship the fellow develops with their, I guess in traditional teacher speak, they're like a mentor teacher. We would call your instructional specialist, supervisor. That relationship and learning from that experienced individual, and then being supported by members of the Professional Development Center or other staff members here is really critical to growth and really critical to helping the young professionals feel like they're supported in doing what they're trying to do. We're a place that's asking young teachers to do things that may be out of their comfort zone, or pushing past what they've experienced previously as a student. And that gets really messy and that can be scary. And so we talk a lot about Eagle Rock, or we talk a lot at Eagle Rock about how it requires great risk to be here as a student, as a staff member, as a fellow. And because of that, those relationships are just really critical to make sure that young professionals are feeling supported and nurtured in their work and their path.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have, that made me think of something that I wanted to add on. So after I was a summer intern here, which, wasn't like the formal licensure program, but it was where I was learning how to teach. I had a really pivotal experience where I knew a student super, super well, had a really good relationship with them outside of class. And then in the second half of my internship, they came into my class and they showed up as an entirely different student than I had known. And that was a really powerful example for me of how students relate to classroom experiences and how much they're carrying their past with them. Had I only known him in the classroom, I wouldn't have known the way to reach him because I wouldn't have known who he was as a full human being. And so I think that's not something we explicitly teach in the teacher prep in our licensure program. But I think it is one of the most powerful things that our licensure candidates walk away with, is that you have to understand who your students are, not just who they are as the student in your classroom, but who they are as full human beings.
Sarah, one thing I keep hearing you bring up is the idea of experiential learning, bringing it up in the context of the school and then bringing it up in context of the teacher prep program. I just wanted you to take a moment and explain a little bit more about what experiential learning means to you, because that's becoming a bit of a buzzword that people are using around. I've noticed it recently, but they're not really doing it. They're saying they're doing experiential learning, but that I don't think is what you're describing or defining. So if you can give us a couple key features that you think resonate most with experiential learning, so I understand and we can be on sort of the same talking path.
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. It's really important. And I do agree that some people think that, like, if you do a hands-on activity, you're doing experiential learning. That is not the case. And so I would say that the most critical elements of experiential learning is that you're doing something that's real, that's open-ended, and can have a lot of different outcomes based on choices that you make. And then you pull back and reflect on it, distill some of the learning and questions that you have, and then it becomes a cycle. So if you say, like, I think I've learned this thing, but I'm wondering about this, you try to apply the thing you learned and continue to inquire about the question that you have. So it's a super quick overview, but that's what I'd say. And that it happens throughout Eagle Rock. Our students start their careers with us on a 23-day wilderness trip. And you learn how to tie the knots for a tarp when it's raining and you need to. And that's part of experiential learning, is there's like a need to learn. And it's true for our presentations of learning that students do at the end of every trimester. They do a presentation at the end of trimester. We don't do a public speaking class, but our students graduate as some of the best public speakers in the country because they have a real experience of need.
That's a great example. Thanks for bringing up a couple of those things, such as reflection, needing to do something, putting someone in a real world situation and having them sort of figure it out as they go. And it goes much deeper and beyond a project-based activity or even a walk around the neighborhood. So thanks for bringing that up for us and sharing those examples. Your teacher prep program, right now we're in a very interesting time with teachers across the country. Many teachers are leaving and not as many teachers are going into the program. So as we face this massive teacher shortage, which we're already seeing now, and I can I'll assume it's going to get worse in the coming years. How do you think Eagle Rock's work can inform issues such as retention, burnout, balance, empowerment, anything that you're thinking about in terms of that as we face this teacher burnout and not enough teachers coming into the profession?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I would say, one of the things that we do is we're a pipeline for incoming teachers who may not have otherwise entered the profession because they didn't want to do a traditional program, for example, or they didn't see themselves reflected in teaching. And I acknowledge that the number of teachers that get their licenses from us each year is a very small drop in the bucket. I think that there are lots and lots of reasons that teachers are leaving the profession. So I'm not going to say that this is the only one, but I think one very important one is a lack of respect for the expertise and autonomy that teachers should have. And so I think one of the things that Eagle Rock does is that we practice on campus that our teachers and other staff, our learners, are reflecting, and that makes the job more fulfilling. And then we connect with other educators to help them do some critical collaborative reflection that I believe is an important thing about keeping people in the profession, that it stays stimulating, that it is honoring people's expertise, and allows people to be continual learners.
Sarah, this has been a really insightful conversation. And listeners, I hope you've gotten a little bit of a snapshot into the teacher fellowship program here at Eagle Rock and Sarah's work and the philosophies that underpin the efforts that are happening here to try to impact education and impact teacher preparation in general. Sarah, every episode, we take a little bit of time to reflect on our conversation and ask ourselves, what is this conversation making me rethink about education? And we would love for you to reflect along with us, but we'll just go around and see what people have to say. And then if you want to add something in, we would love that. Matt, what's on your mind as a result of this conversation?
Yeah, I love the idea of the process of education, and that we sort of don't have it figured out at the beginning. We don't have it figured out at the middle. And we don't have it figured out at the end, but there's a process that we're learning, and we're trying to get a better understanding as we still don't have it figured out. And I also love that model paired within a school with a professional development center, because we have this learning going on here and its application over here and the interconnectedness of the two. But then there's a humility as both of those things are going on, that we're learning a lot and we're growing and all of this. And these are great insights, but we don't have everything figured out. So I love that combination, but there's this, I don't have it figured out, but there's this drive to move forward. Sometimes there's this, I don't have it figured out, and then it turns to apathy, or I'm just not going to do anything. But I don't hear that from Sarah or from the work at Eagle Rock. So it's making me think about that as a really healthy and nurturing process within schools and within education as a whole.
Thanks, Matt. Janine, what's on your mind?
Well, I love everything that Sarah had to share. I'm super jealous, actually. You've got everything going on that Julie and I would probably both agree that that's something that we want to strive for, bring here, and it makes me wonder, like, why? Well, where's the other prep programs? Where are these others? Why are other schools doing this? What are the roadblocks? What are the things that are preventing this sort of model from actually happening? Is it ever going to be possible in PA? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I hope so. You give me a lot of hope, as from this conversation, is that maybe there is a way, and that if we can continue to connect and share our expertises, that maybe we can figure this out together. Thanks, Sarah.
Julie, what's on your mind?
I just think it's remarkable that the mission of Eagle Rock permeates through all facets. I'm intrigued by how much time and energy and care has been spent on making sure that students are invited to the table, that they have an authentic seat at the table, not just input or and even with this idea of inviting people into the profession and realizing that everyone has value from the get-go. That you don't find that every place. And so when you think about everything that I've heard about Eagle Rock, from Mike for a long time now, we've heard about Eagle Rock, but this is really cemented in my mind that such care was placed in this idea of mission, with the outreach, just really living in an authentic way, and how you approach the day-to-day of teaching, which it can be really exciting. It can also, we can get mired in the day-to-day. And it seems like that would never happen at Eagle Rock, because this kind of continual cycle of learning and experiencing, and there's always something new to learn. And that is how you approach the teacher preparation program as well. So I would imagine if all teachers felt, that empowered, they would stay. So I do think you're onto something. If they had that authentic experience and came to it as a learner and at a place where they felt supported, what could go wrong?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Julie, and agree with Matt and Janine, your reflections. And I would just add that one thing I love about the fellowship program at Eagle Rock is its emphasis on identity. Who am I as a teacher? How am I showing up in the classroom every day? What choices am I making? What voices am I bringing into the classroom with me? What are my relationships like with my students? All of that work is really, really, really important. And I once had a conversation with a teacher. This is probably like 12 years ago. And they were teaching this book. And I was like, just curious. I said, why did you select this book to teach? And they said, what do you mean? Why did I select this book? And I said, well, you could have chosen one of hundreds of books. There's unlimited options, really. And you selected this one, but what's the reason? And they were like, I don't really know. Why are you asking me that question? And it was one moment that I remember in my teaching career where I was like, I wonder how much time this person has spent thinking about their why, and who they are and what voices they're bringing into their classrooms. And it wasn't a knock on that person. They were a terrific teacher, really. And I just don't know that a lot of teacher preparation spaces or schools offer time and space for professionals to reflect in that way. And it's one thing that I think, if I wasn't clear about that, I don't know if I would still be a teacher right now. My driving why is really what keeps me in education, especially these days when education is kind of a hot mess, and getting a lot of pressure from a lot of different points, right? And so if I wasn't clear about that why, I'm not so sure what would have happened. And I wish that other programs and other places and other spaces would take time to allow teachers to reflect on, why am I here? What am I doing here? What am I, and what does that mean for my practice as a teacher on a day-to-day basis? Sarah, do you have any reflections that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I'd say the key thing, as I'm reflecting, and I appreciate all the things that everyone shared about how great it sounds here, and it is great. I've worked in a lot of schools, and this is my favorite one. It takes a different kind of vulnerability, commitment, ability to manage ambiguity, to be in the work of authentic relationship and community. And so another thing that's true about Eagle Rock and all of our licensure candidates is that they stay up late at night with students who are in crisis. And they understand that those dynamics come into their classroom. And so it's not what everybody wants in teaching. Like, some people want to be able to deliver a pretty clear lesson plan. And yet I think it's really valuable, but it's not easy. We have a bunch of human beings on this little campus that come from all different backgrounds and have all different histories and traumas and passions and dreams, and we bump up against each other, and that's what community is.
Yeah, I love it. It is so important to point out that the quasi-utopic version of what we're presenting here in this podcast at the end of the day also is super messy and challenging, and isn't the right place for everybody. Like you mentioned, Sarah, some folks want to get into teaching and then leave and go home and be done with their job for the day, and that doesn't really happen so easily here. And that's okay. I want to make sure we point that out too, that there are different places for different people. Teachers often find their home at a place that doesn't look anything like Eagle Rock, and that's totally fine. And I would in fact encourage that, find the right place for you that speaks to who you are and who you would like to be as a teacher in an education community. Sarah, this has been a great conversation. We end our conversation with an opportunity for people to plug some things. And I know Matt and Julie have brought some plugs, so let's get on with it. Matt, what you plugging tonight?
Yeah, whatschoolcouldbe.org. It's a great site. It has a wonderful movie, a book, and it has a network as well that you can join and then collaborate with other like-minded people that are trying to rethink schooling, and it's put together by Ted Dinnersmith, so really excited about that.
I've heard of that before, Matt. That's cool.
Yeah.
Julie, what do you want to plug?
Yeah, I'm a member, Matt. Awesome plug. I'm going to plug a conference, Teacher Powered Schools. If you, we'll drop it in the show notes there. But Teacher Powered Schools is having a conference in Minneapolis in the fall. I'm really excited about the theme. I'm really excited about some of this conversation, including teacher preparation programs, including authentic learning and student-driven, student-centered learning. All of those conversations happening at the Teacher Powered School Conference. So I am going.
Awesome. Yes, everybody should join. Check it out. I am going to plug the Open Way Learning Network. Really cool group of guys that are the founders, Ben Owens and Adam Hagler. We plugged their book in the past, but I want to plug something that's happening right now with them. They're hosting monthly, what they call OWL coffee conversations, and you can join for free, sign yourself up, and they meet each month, and Ben and Adam facilitate a really terrific little gathering over Zoom, and it's really fun. You get to meet some like-minded people and interesting people, and just connect with folks. So yeah, check it out. You can head on over to openwaylearning.org. We'll drop that link in the show notes. Sarah, share with us your plugs.
Sure. There's so many, but I'm going to pick Cultivating Genius by Dr. Gholdy Muhammad, because I mentioned it earlier as one of our key texts. Dr. Muhammad bases her recommendation in a historical study of Black literary societies, and has a framework that helps teachers to think about what they should focus on with students. And I named earlier that she says that it should be identity, skills, intellectualism, and criticality.
Awesome. And I think I've plugged Dr. Muhammad's book on a previous podcast, but hey, listen, the more plugs, the merrier for that book, because it's awesome. And Dr. Muhammad's work is really inspiring. Sarah Bertucci, it's been a pleasure having you on our podcast. We've loved learning about Eagle Rock School and Professional Development Center, your role there, and the teacher licensure program. Listeners, we appreciate you making it all the way to the end of the episode. And if you are super pumped about this episode, you can go on over to patreon.com/rethinkingedu. Support our podcast at $3 a month, and you can get yourself some access to the Think Tank, which is our behind the scenes conversation that we usually follow up with every episode. Listeners, thanks for joining us. Co-host, it's always a pleasure. And thanks, Sarah. And as always, keep rethinking EDU. Thanks.